Good evening. I hope you're doing well. In this video, I would like to touch upon the subject of a historical significance of the vagus nerve. I will be reading most of the time, so I don't miss anything that I would like to share with you, so please bear with me. This topic I actually wanted to present to you because I wanted to show you an evolutionary path, so to speak, of how we actually got to our current understanding of the significance of the vagus in our times and have reached something as important as polyvagal theory hypothesis, for example, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. Actually, this is no longer just a hypothesis since it's being applied in clinical practice, especially in the treatment of trauma, as well as other medical and psychiatric conditions. All of this being said, I would like to now start talking to you about the subject of this video. Cranial nerve 10, or vagus, is something that has been studied for centuries. And to start off, I would like to read you a paragraph or two from the book titled Accessing the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve by Stanley Rosenberg that I've already mentioned in my previous video. So what he writes here, as far as historical recognition of the vagus, is the following. The first recorded mention of the vagus nerve came from the Greek physician Claudius Galen, 130 to 200 AD, who lived in the Roman Empire and studied the vagus nerve in gladiators, whose injuries he treated, and also in the Barbary apes and pigs that he dissected in order to learn more about the body. Galen noted certain dysfunctions that occurred when the vagus nerve had been severed in some of the gladiators. Galen's writings on the vagus nerve were only a part of his legacy. In fact, his writings comprise half of all the writings on any subject that have survived from ancient Greece. His vast writings were so widespread and respected that they served as a foundation of European medicine for more than 1500 years. Since Galen's first explorations, the vagus nerve has been included in all medical texts as well as in papers and books by many psychologists. So yes, vagus has been known for quite some time, particularly due to its role in the brain-gut connection. And historically, vagus has been named pneumogastric nerve since it innervates both the lungs and the stomach. The other thing that made vagus famous and or center of the study is development of procedures such as vagotomy, where they remove parts of the vagus, and also vagus nerve stimulation. Both of these modalities were to treat various health conditions, including but not limited to ulcers, epilepsy, and later mood disorders such as depression, as well as anxiety-related ailments and various other mental, psychiatric, stress, inflammation-related conditions, as well as chronic illnesses. and neurological ones. So, going back to the beginning, early understandings of the vagus were mainly focused on its role in breathing, voice, even tear production, as many Greek and Roman physicians, such as Galen, have been studying vagus to learn its anatomy. However, as important and widespread as it was, these first understandings did create some misconceptions. While Galen made significant contributions to our understanding of human body, his anatomical knowledge, particularly regarding vagus nerve, was limited. Galen did correctly describe the vagus and its role in voice production, but some of his views about the vagus and its functions and connections were later proven incorrect by Andreas Vesalius and William Harvey, and you could find this information online. One of the biggest misconceptions that I would like to point out that I believe is of importance is the one about autonomic nervous system, consisting only of two divisions, sympathetic and parasympathetic. But this will begin to shift as we start to see how chronic stress became identified as a cause of development of many serious health conditions, including heart disease, asthma, diabetes, and variety of other medical and psychiatric conditions. Moving on, during the Middle Ages, people started to view vagus as a spiritual channel between the body and the soul. It is very interesting to see how we came to such an understanding of the vagus, where we see our body as divine entity, so to speak, and how different structures in it, such as vagus, allow us to experience the world the way that we humans do. I, for one, am very much interested in finding out more on this subject and to share it with those of you who are also curious about it in my future videos. Continuing on in the next century or so, the true nature of the vagus began to emerge with greater understanding of its complex functions. So, Ivan Pavlov, famous Russian physiologist, studied the vagus nerve and its role in digestion from around 1890 to 1897, focusing on secretory activity of the pancreas and the stomach. His work, including the creation of Pavlov pouch, culminated in his book Lectures on the Work in Digestive Glands, Lectures on the Work of the Digestive Glands, published in 1897 according to Britannica, and earned him the Nobel Prize in 1904 for his research on digestion. In the 17th to 19th century, European studies of the vagus nerve continued and still were focused on its anatomical structure and physiological functions, primarily through dissection and observation. Key figures like Thomas Willis, Giovanni Aldini, and Jean-Baptiste Émile Boniface or Bonifazi provided anatomical descriptions and experimented with electrical stimulation to understand its effects on the body. These studies laid the foundation for later research on the vagus nerve stimulation. James Coring's work in 1880s in the US proposed vagus nerve stimulation as a way to treat epilepsy by reducing cerebral blood flow. He used quote, carotid fork device for both mechanical compression and electrical stimulation of the vagus. And you're welcome to ask me if you'd like more information on this procedure and or any other information related to this video. Identification of the acetylcholine as a neurotransmitter by Otto Loewy in 1921, Lord Adrian's all or none principle of nerve firing in 1926, and investigations of autonomic reflexes like baroreceptor reflex and hypoxic ventilatory response also occur around this time. Later studies focused on the clinical utility of the vagus nerve stimulation for conditions like epilepsy and depression, with the development of vagus nerve stimulation devices, or VNS for short. I will be calling them VNS from now on. So the VNS devices were looked at to be used for treatment of these conditions. In 1930s, scientists like Bailey and Bremer demonstrated direct influence of vagus nerve stimulation on central nervous system by showing that VNS could influence synchronized brain activity in the feline cortex. Dell and Olson further investigated the localized effects of VNS. So you will see how VNS has evolved as a procedure, as I will be talking a bit more about what developments have occurred for you to see the evolution that was taking place. In the 1940s, Latarjet and Dragstedt started performing vagotomies, or surgical removal of parts of the vagus nerve, as I have mentioned, to treat duodenal ulcers and other conditions that mostly involve GI tract, I believe. And the vagotomy became a standard part of ulcer treatment for quite some time. However, it has now declined due to the development of more effective pharmacological treatments and discovery of H. pylori or Helicobacter pylori role in the formation of ulcers. So now we get to polyvagal theory in its beginning stages, so to speak. Stefan Porges began his research on neonates' heart rate variability in the early to mid-1970s. His work, published in 1970s to 1980s, focused on how this heart rate variability related to their development and behavior. Specifically, his research explored the link between respiratory sinus arrhythmia, a type of heart rate variability, and individual differences in attention and cognitive processing in infants. This research became the cornerstone of polyvagal theory, or PVT for short. So Dr. Porges introduced the theory itself in 1994, and he has continued to expand upon it ever since. I won't go into much detail about PVT here, since I already have made some videos that you can check out, and I might put a link in the description section below this video. However, I will want to say a bit more here about PVT because it has expanded our understanding of the significance of the vagus. Dr. Porges presented new understanding of the function of the vagus in terms of it playing a crucial role not only in regulating bodily functions such as heart rhythm, breathing rate, speaking, swallowing, and various digestive processes, among others, but also in social communication and threat responses, influencing our emotional and behavioral reactions to cues of safety versus threat or danger in our environment. While Porges's concept of stress was the same, because a lot of people started to look into that. Like I said, stress was identified as a factor in the development of many different illnesses a bit before in this video, earlier in this video. So Porges didn't change much about the way that others viewed stress. And for that, you can check out various resources as far as the stress response in the body. I believe I made a post in the community section on this channel, and I'll be sure to make it if I didn't. But Porges presented radically different model of ANS, or autonomic nervous system. He actually postulated that there are not just two divisions like sympathetic and parasympathetic, that there are three: the ventral vagus, the ventral branch of the vagus, the sympathetic nervous system, formed mainly by the sympathetic chain ganglion, and the dorsal branch of the vagus. And each of these are responsible for different functions. So because Porges's research centered on the relationship between ANS and social behavior, I apologize for all the noises coming from outside, this made us aware that our physiological states correspond to our emotional ones, as well as cognitive patterns that go along with these states. So this had significant implications, particularly in relation to trauma and mental health. The theory provided insights into how trauma can impact ANS, or autonomic nervous system, and behaviors, which led to the development of new treatment strategies for trauma-related conditions, including PTSD. At around the same time, Jacob Zabara's research in animal models demonstrated that VNS could abort chemically induced seizures and tremors. He developed first modern implanted VNS device, the neurocybernetic prosthesis system, which was first implanted in humans in 1988. VNS was approved for pharmaca-resistant epilepsy in Europe and the US in the late 1990s, as FDA approved for refractory epilepsy and later for refractory depression. So, as you can see, there were a lot of developments in the field of utilizing this modality of vagus nerve stimulation to treat aforementioned ailments. And so now we reach 21st century. PVT or polyvagal theory truly revolutionized our understanding of the vagus. We now recognize 3 ANS states, and not just that, but also hybrid states. I actually made a short some time ago where I list those 5 states, and if there's any interest, I can make a full video about it. Please let me know so that I won't be doing it without any interest. So, besides recognizing those states of ANS, we also recognize the roles of the vagus as a social communication pathway in emotional regulation, in trauma, in various health conditions, such as cardiovascular, respiratory, neurologic, digestive, endocrine, immune system related, as well as mental health disorders and the like. So Dr. Stephen Porges also has created, as I have mentioned in my previous video, a safe and sound protocol, which is a music-based intervention originally designed for autistic children. It was designed to improve social engagement and help with emotional dysregulation and or improve hearing capacity. The predecessor of a Safe and Sound protocol was called the Listening Project, and many people who wanted to find research behind Safe and Sound protocol weren't aware to look under Listening Project. That is actually where you could find scientific data parameters and the like that were part of this project. And he developed it 20 years or so ago. So it was a bit of time that has passed since then. Safe and Sound protocol itself, as a distinct entity, became available to mental health professionals in 2017 because it started to be utilized in the treatment of trauma, mainly for emotional dysregulation. And Dr. Porges actually developed an app together with integrated listening systems to be able to distribute this protocol to the healthcare providers, mental health care providers, and other providers. Now it's known as Unite. So to continue, VNS is still being investigated in our times, in the 21st century, for the treatment of a range of conditions. Unlike before, it's not just for epilepsy and depression. Now they are looking at using it for pain management, like in case of cluster headaches and migraines, and also for modulating inflammation, because vagus nerve actually does play a role in inflammatory processes, as it controls the function of endocrine glands for one. So, and also the brain-gut axis, is still being looked at for treatment of depression and epilepsy as before, even in the absence of seizure control, when considering its effects on the mood. VNS is also being considered in treatment of heart failure and inflammatory bowel disease, among others. FDA actually has approved and implemented in 2005 TRMDD. Actually, this is a treatment-resistant major depressive disorder treatment that VNS is being approved for. People are actually looking at development of non-invasive VNS techniques because the older ones involve surgery, but right now there is transcutaneous vagus nerve stimulation that does not require one to undergo surgical procedure, and it could also be used for a variety of conditions. To wrap up, as you can tell, evolution has taken place as far as the significance of the vagus nerve goes, and now we can navigate the world with more understanding of how our body functions, how our autonomic nervous system functions, and we do things to help ourselves live healthier and more fulfilled lives if we choose to take this information into account. There's a lot more to say about vagus, including the topic I have touched upon in this video. I will be researching more and sharing it with you in my future videos. I also would want to present information on different health conditions that result from damage to and or dysfunction of cranial nerves, and that would also include vagus. I will briefly touch upon many commonly known conditions, as there are probably a variety of others, but if there's any more interest, I would be happy to make other videos to cover your topics of interest. The last thing that I would like to say in this video is that significance of the vagus is not just in its role in our physical, emotional, social health, which is truly remarkable. if one were to look at Vegas from an observer point of view, so to speak, one could not help but notice how amazing our body truly is and how we have such an autonomic nervous system in the first place. I hope you liked this video. As always, if you have anything to share or to ask about the content, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than happy to oblige your interest. Thank you for listening and have a good night.